Now, the irony is, this is a socialist, right? Who lives like a capitalist, calling out a Marxist. Oh, the irony. Like, I'm not mad. I am not even a fan of Umar Johnson. I don't care for his worldview very much and all of that Pan-Africanism. It just seems too much of an act. However, Umar is like one of those broken clocks that happen to be right twice a day. And when he says something that just makes sense, you're like, why can't you be like this all the time? So we're going to examine what Umar Johnson said. I'm going to go ahead and play the video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and see what Mr. Umar Johnson has had to say about Kamala Harris.
Black vote ain't for sale no more. Black vote ain't for sale. We bartering on business. We standing on business. Bring us some tangibles or get out of my face. Rickey, Smiley, I love you. But crying on the radio for Kamala Harris, my brother, that's an all-time low. Don't do that again, Rickey, Smiley. Don't you get on your radio show and cry for Kamala. Don't you do that, my brother. If you want to cry for Kamala Harris, if you want to cry for Kamala Harris, you do that in the privacy of your house. But if we're going to be honest, Steve Harvey and Rickey, to my big brothers, but if we're going to be honest, Rickey, Smiley, and Steve Harvey, y'all only carried on because y'all got paid to carry on. Can we please be honest? Can we see? I want y'all to understand, overstand, and understand what King Kong is talking about. Y'all carried on because y'all got paid to carry on. Kamala Harris and the Democratic plantation is paying you celebrities, paying you to shame black people into voting. Y'all know we not going to get nothing out of that vote. Y'all know we not going to get nothing out of that vote. Y'all know we not going to get nothing out of the vote, but they being paid. Y'all being bought. They offer me $10K for an interview with Kamala Harris. I don't want your money, but we can definitely do the interview. They offer me $10K for an interview with Kamala Harris. Yes, we can do the interview. Keep your damn money. King Kong consciousness ain't for sale. I'm one of the real ones. Silverback Garvey Gorilla. I'm one of the real ones. Silverback Garvey Gorilla. Don't come to me with no propositions for money. I don't live for no money. I'm not one of these goofy ass rappers whose whole life is nothing but what you can buy and own. You dealing with real African DNA. This is real ancestral energy over here. I'm not no Rickey, Smiley, and Steve Harvey. You don't drop no check off and say, get the Negroes to the plantation on November the 4th. You don't drop no check off and say, get the Negroes to the plantation.
He is such an entertaining character. Umar Johnson, he puzzles me. Yet he also intrigues me. So Umar said a lot, much of what I agreed with. He talked about tangibles. He was like, listen, don't come at me asking for my vote when you already know that you're not going to do anything for that vote. He's asking for tangibles. Now, this is a Christian YouTube channel. I don't want you guys to confuse me with the pro-blackity blacks or the Pan-African people. Like, that's not me. Y'all know me. I'm very forward and just outright with who I am and who I represent. I represent the kingdom of God. And I'm not one of those, I don't want a handout, but I understand what he means when he says tangibles. He says, for my vote, what type of political representation am I going to get for it? And then furthermore, if I'm not mistaken, Umar Johnson is a socialist, so he's absolutely looking for a handout. He wants reparations. He wants bread in his pocket, and he wants it now. He, if I'm not mistaken, also affirms a livable wage. And we can talk a little bit about what that is and universal basic income. Like, he lives like a capitalist, but he talks like a socialist. And so it's so confusing. It's very, very confusing when I hear someone like Umar Johnson calling out Kamala Harris, but I really believe it's because he really believes in his rhetoric. Like, he has a deeply held conviction about these things, but I don't really think he truly understands it, or he does, and he just uses it as a ploy to gain the approval of Black folk, so that he can continue to raise money for a school that has failed to materialize. Now, the irony is, like I said, this is a socialist, right? Who lives like a capitalist, calling out a Marxist. Oh, the irony. Like, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at it, though, because it needed to be done. And I'm glad it was done by if you want to, well, see, it's confusing. This dichotomy got me all confused, because I want to say I'm glad it happened from a masculine male, but Umar confuses me, because on one breath he talk about being this silverback, gorilla, and then in the next breath he's always pandering to women and telling women what they want to hear because he needs your money. So I'm so confused, and the mixed messaging is where I am having the struggle. I do think it is incredible, though, that for once Umar didn't take the money. And I don't know if he's not taking the money because he's like, okay, I see the bigger picture here. It wasn't enough. He's just like, you really think I'm gonna sell out for 10 G's? 10 stacks is nothing. You know how much my school needs, or how much I need in the name of my school to keep this charade going? But he did. He called it out, and then he exposed the others that are selling out their souls for 30 pieces of silver. I thought that was so interesting. So he talked about crying Rickey. He talked about Steve Harvey, and he just said the quiet part out loud. He was like, y'all are getting paid. And he says that, I, talking about himself, was offered $10,000 for an interview. Now, I think it's funny because in politics, typically the way it works, an interview is offered because you want your messaging out. And usually the way it's not supposed to work, there's not supposed to be this consideration, this exchange of money in exchange for the interview. That is different. That is different than paying an influencer. The whole influencer game, that's another animal where you find people whose messaging and platform resonates with your message and platform. And then the two of you broker a deal together to say, hey, I want to retain you as an influencer for my brand, and this is how much I am willing to pay. Are you able to do a sponsored video for me? Are you able to do a sponsored post for me? Are you able to do whatever it is that they're asking you to do? I don't find anything wrong with that. I think that's the capitalistic way of leveraging your influence for money, right? But in this case, this is politics. This is a little different. And Umar Johnson, because he does lead by a conviction, although many of them I disagree with, his thing is like, no, I want the interview, but you don't have to pay me to do it, because what happens with the money, the moment you accept that money, the expectation is you're going to echo what I tell you to say, and you're going to echo my message. You're not allowed to express your independent thought, and you better not make any demands on me. What we're going to do is we're going to do this interview, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and you're not going to push back. You're going to fawn over me and Queen Mother Goddess Earth love on me. You're going to do all of that. And you're not going to ask for anything. Don't sit in this interview begging. You're going to take this $10,000. And you're going to say what we've trained you to say with these talking points. And then afterwards, before, you're going to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, meaning you are not going to disclose the fact that I paid you $10,000 to act like you love me so much. So I like the fact that Umar Johnson calls out Rickey Smiley, calls out Steve Harvey. We already know they're pimps, and they will go to the highest bidder. And they've been lying to their audiences for years. Even though they live like capitalists, they want you to get on board with the socialist, Marxist, communist worldview. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then he goes on this rant where he starts referring to himself as this silverback gorilla, right? And I'm thinking he's using that form, this form of hyperbole to demonstrate that, I'm not one to be messed with. I am one of the fearless leaders in the community that stands on business, and I have principles, and you're not going to get access to my audience because I don't align with what you're selling. But for me, I don't have a problem calling himself a silverback gorilla, but I have a term. Y'all know me. We got the orangutans. That's the female imbeciles who can't manage their misery, the ones that show out and they just act a fool. They don't know how to act. And that's not an external description of what these women look like. It's not black women are orangutans or all women. Any kind of woman can be an orangutan. Like Hillary's an orangutan. Margaret Sanger, she was an orangutan. You got, let me see, Joy Behar, queen of the orangutans. I mean, I just have this spectrum of women that I've placed on the orangutan spectrum because these are female imbeciles who can't manage their misery. And so they lack joy, they show out. They're just not really nice people to be around. They're typically very rebellious, feminist minded. They're just not the kind of women that you want to have as friends. And you definitely don't want to marry one of these women because they will make your life a living hell. You will be miserable. But the male equivalent of the orangutan is who I call him the pavement ape. So I thought it was funny, when Umar calls himself the silverback gorilla. I was like, you know who you are, right? The pavement ape is the moronic male who can't function in freedom, right? So, they speak with this sentiment of oppression, and the white man's always got his knee on my neck, and the white oppressors and the snow bunnies, and they haven't gotten the memo that they are free, right? But they live as if they're just living under this oppressive regime that prevents them from being and doing whatever it is that they want to do. So they're morons, right? So they do stupid stuff, right? Like they tear up their own communities under the name or the banner of white supremacy. They just, let me give you a prime example. Some pavement apes are, when you look at the riots, or actually something better. You know who is like a chief pavement ape? I'll give you two examples. I'll give you Van Jones and Roland Martin. And then I'm trying to, so that y'all don't think that it's always about ethnicity, because it's not. Those are just the ones that keep coming to my mind. I'm going to think of another equivalent. Definitely a pavement ape is, what's the dude that just lost his race up in New York? Jamal Bowman. Definitely a pavement ape. I'd probably call Bernie Sanders one. And I'll think of some others. But if you get the idea, moronic male who can't function in freedom, right? And so they're self-destructive. They advocate things that are the opposite of what they say they want to be, which is free. They get glory and enjoyment from pushing harmful narratives that are not their observed reality or their lived experience, but they do it because they haven't gotten the memo that they are free. And so they try to rally others behind them with the same worldview. And it just creates this cycle of other pavement apes. It's just kind of crazy. Like, you got pavement apes in the hood and you got pavement apes in the boardroom. You know who what? Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is a pavement ape. Okay, I ain't gonna do a show about that right now, but I'm trying to just give y'all an idea so you'll understand what I'm talking about.